I was thinking about this today. The fact that as much as there is to gain externally, there's just as much, if not more, to gain internally. But when we neglect who we are for what we can gain, we lose a lot of our internal value. And this verse that kind of set me up for this in James chapter 4, verse 17. And actually 15 through 17. And it says, Instead, you ought to say, if the Lord wills, we shall live and do this or that. But now you boast in your arrogance. All such boasting is evil. Therefore, to him who knows to do good and does not do it, to him it is sin. And here, when it says that instead you ought to say, means that we should be submitting. It's our decision to submit to the Lord. But then also here in verse 17, it says, who knows to do good and does not do it, to him it is sin. Meaning we must make the change. We must make the decision. We must make the decision. Now, y'all know me. I took some time to just write some stuff in my journal, and I wanted to share with you again. And it says, what you aren't changing, you're choosing. But but more to say that do what you can with what you have. Do what you can with what you have. Understanding that your effort is only proportional to the belief or the faith that you have in yourself to be able to achieve it. And also to broadening that perspective so you can achieve more. Do what you can. It's something I've been telling myself a lot more recently, that it's almost like a motto of mine, that I'm just doing what I can. And I don't mean that in a sense of lack, right? But more so doing all that you can with all that you have. Time included, resources included, gifts included, passions included, doing all that you can with what you have. Because whatever you're not changing, you're choosing. What's not resolved always repeats. So it's up to us to break the cycle. It's up to us to break the cycle, because I really feel like it's not our success nor failure, but it's our stagnation, right? A lot of times we've even identified ourselves as procrastinators, or just people who honestly we delay our own self. A lot of the stagnation is kind of just self-inflicted, right? And it's funny how the thing that we're the most afraid of, which is just staying in the same place over and over and over again, finding ourselves stepping back to that starting line over and over and over again, is self-inflicted. Because what's not resolved always repeats. And it's because we find ourselves back at that starting line because we've changed the due date, and sometimes we even changed the goal in general, but we haven't changed our perspective. There's no stress to be you. There's no stress to deal with you. There shouldn't be, at least, any stress in you. But when we're trying to accomplish certain things, not only must we elevate ourselves to be able to accomplish such desire, but we also must do the things that helps us obtain it, right? If you want to achieve something, you have to act in accordance to that something. It's silly to think that we can accomplish certain things if we never act in accordance to such a thing. It's not the discomfort with the situation, right? And I'm trying to learn this myself in different aspects. But it's not the discomfort with the situation itself, but the discomfort is in the previous versions of ourselves that is not accommodating to this new experience. It's not discomfort in doing the new thing. New isn't the problem. It's your old self that is. And it's when I say that, the reason why we find ourselves at the starting line over and over again is simply because we have been trying to bring our old selves into new situations, new environments, new things that pretell us to be new. That our old self was perfect for that old experience. It was exactly what we needed for then, when we had only the amount of knowledge that we had before. But now we're entering into a new experience. And I'm not saying that the things that you've learned in your past will not be beneficial now. What I'm saying is don't live in reference in the past or to the past, because your future self can't solve your current problems. Your future self can't solve your present problems. Only you now can. It's only you now that can. So it goes back to breaking that cycle. And I just mean that to say that you build the future in the present. You build your future in the present, because the past is in our head, the future is in our hands, and the present is what we use to work with. And it's also about affirming to yourself that if it's humanly possible, that you can to do it. If it's possible, right? Like if it's not impossible for it to happen, if there's a man or a woman out there who's done it before, you too can do it as well. And getting to that point where you have to shift your perspective, you have to break the cycle. It's going to continuously be in this loop, and it's almost like a feedback loop where you constantly are just going around and around in this cycle over and over again because you haven't changed your perspective on it. You've tried to enter new things. You've tried to do new or even have new goals, but you've brought your old self into those new experiences. The new discomfort. And it feels like it's new discomfort, but it's just the same old feedback. So now you've set yourself up to where you don't even like doing new things because you already know that you're just going to enter back into the cycle. But the thing that we fear the most is stagnation. So this is where this discomfort comes from. This is where this stress and this anxiety begins to form. This is where that self-hatred begins to form. This is where self-damning even occurs. This is where you start living in your own personal hell. Until you realize that, just like it shows in James, we have the decision to make. It tells us that if you can choose to do good or not. Same way you can choose to change the perspective. You can choose to set the discipline, and don't even think about discipline in a negative way, but look at discipline as just a form of self-love, because it truly is. The more disciplined you are, the more you love yourself. The more you're willing to say no to these things means how much these things, or saying yes to these things, really matter. It's setting yourself up for success, not for failure. It really is. It really is. Like setting yourself up, because what you aren't changing, you're choosing. And that just goes back to say that what's not resolved always repeats. So if you're tired of going through the same thing, stop doing the same thing. Go further. If you're tired of experiencing the same old experiences, change the response. I'm not saying that the desire must change, but change how you respond to the discomfort. Change how you respond to when things don't go right. Give enough affirmation to self. Do enough affirming to self, enough validity to self that if it's humanly possible, then you too can do it. That it's not too far out of reach. It's in will. That you can will it to occur. But then also give enough value to yourself. Because yes, you're gonna have to increase to the level of your desire. Always. You're gonna always have to increase to the level of the desire. Because that's how you get on the playing field. You have to act in accordance to such desire. But give enough love to self while you're doing it. The self-hatred comes into the self-judgment, the hatred, all these things happens because we keep experiencing the same things. And we say that we're going to be different this time, and then we weren't different. Right? We said that it was going to be a new year last year. And we knew that the new year was coming. So the year changed, but we didn't. And so it started causing all this condemnation in life. But give yourself grace, because this is your first time here too. This is your first time at existence. This is your first time living, going through this thing. This is your first time learning how to be you. Which is why I say that you shouldn't have stress. There shouldn't be any stress to be you while you're living your life. And that you should seek the internal instead of the external. Because you form your own opportunities. You're the creator of your own life. So you form your own opportunities. You create the path. I said something here that was so good for me. Hopefully it'll be good for you. And it says it's not about chasing the outcome. It's about walking the path. I think we get so caught up with trying to catch up when you were never behind in the first place. You're exactly where you're meant to be. You're exactly what you can handle now. There's a parable in Matthew chapter 25. It's called the parable of the talents. I believe it starts in verse 14. But it talks about this master who has 3 different servants. And he gives one servant 10 talents. Gives another servant 5 talents. And then gives another servant, or I think it's 5 talents, 2 talents, 1 talent. And the first servant, he works and he invests that money, and then he gets a double in return for the master. Then the other servant doubles it. And then the last servant, who got the 1 talent, was so afraid to lose the talent for his master that instead he dug it and hid it in the earth, so that when the master returned, that he could just give the money back to him. He was so afraid to do anything with it, to lose it, that he chose not to do anything at all. And when I look at that, spirituality aside, even though that has so much there too, spirituality aside, when I just look at that and our own lives are just being stewarders and being servants to the own things that we want, to their own desires, to what we're pursuing, the goals, our family, all these different things, right? How many, in what areas, or how many times have we been that servant who is afraid to do anything at all? So we just hide. We hide our gifts, we hide our talents away. And how many times have we said would it be like the other two? And see, the thing about it is, that's why I love the Bible. The thing about it, is that the master said that he has given it. The Bible lets us know that the master gave the talents to those who can manage it. So the one who can manage 5, he gave 5. The one who can manage 2 gave 2. The one who can manage 1, he gave 1. What you have in your life right now is exactly what you can manage. And if you're wanting to manage more, then you have to be willing to do more. You have to start increasing you have to increase to the level of your desire. If you want this blessing, if you want this goal, this accomplishment, you have to also act in accordance to such a thing. Faith in it existing for you is one thing, but the works must follow. Faith without works is dead. So, and such as you having and hoping and wishing that this could happen for you, that you could accomplish these things, but never putting in the work to accomplish them, it won't happen. It just won't happen. And I'm not saying that to be on a negative side. I'm just saying that's because our perspective must change. It must change, because whatever we're not changing, we're choosing. And if you're choosing to just have faith that this thing can happen to you, but you never apply the works to it, then you'll constantly just be living in reference to the things that you believe in your mind. You will only be living in your mind. But it will never manifest into the external world. And this is why I'm saying you shouldn't seek out or chase externally what you can already create internally. Because before it can actually happen in the physical, it has to happen in the mental. Because the physical can take the steps, but the mental is what makes the change. It always works that way. The Wright brothers is a great example. I don't even know how I got here, but the Wright brothers is a great example. Nobody believed that they could build a plane. Nobody believed that man could fly. They had no reference for how that they could do, they had no reference to even build the plane in the first place. It was all up here. Their perspective is what created something to actually occur outside of themselves. And it's the same thing that we have the capability of doing so. If it's humanly possible, you too can do it. I love it. It's so simple, but whatever you're not changing, you're choosing. You have to be an active participant in your own life. We are, if we choose to or not. We don't have a choice. You're an active participant in your own life, and you're either participating in the creation or the undoing of self. You're either participating in doing the good or the bad of self. But in the end, there's no one else to blame. Because nobody else has these goals for you except you. Nobody else has set these standards for yourself except you. Nobody else said that they wanted you to do this or that this should happen except you. So it's up to you to make the change. It's up to you. But it's up to all of us, honestly, right? In every aspect of our lives, it's in our hands. And whatever is not in our hands shouldn't be in our mind. Control what you can control helps you keep the prosperity of life. What you cannot control, release it. Release it. Because what's out of your control is in God's hands. And that's exactly where it should be. But if you've made it this far in the video, sorry. If you made it this far in the video, I appreciate it. I really do. I appreciate it because this is my expression. Regardless of any external validation, I've already validated self to create this. So I appreciate the likes, the comments, the shares, the views, all these things that add some external validity to my internal expression. I thank you. But even if you don't like it, I still appreciate you because I do. I do. So that being said, I love y'all. Peace be with y'all. And I will see you in the next one.